Live. Welcome to this afternoon's discussion of Disney's The Little Mermaid. So, where would you guys like to start?
Maybe with Ariel.
So, what did you see? Pardon the pun.
Well, she seemed very impulsive, which I guess could be normal for her age if she's 16. But she's just wanting to kind of give up her whole family and her whole life, um, just to have 3 days with this prince, so that maybe he'll fall in love with her. And she loses her voice too, so she loses a lot of things for only a chance at something she wants.
Mhm.
So I definitely felt that she was very impulsive.
Yeah, I think your observation that what jumps out at you is her impulsivity, and that your first inclination is to say that it's in the context of normal behavior, that is, it's developmentally appropriate. Identifying that she is a teenager is the absolute necessity. And then the idea from a clinical perspective is what additional evidence do we have to suggest that maybe we should move beyond that, about her losing her voice? I don't want to just dismiss that as, oh, that's just a coincidence or nothing to do with her impulsivity. It may or may not, but it needs to be investigated. And there might be other additional evidence of this being clinically significant.
I was thinking there would maybe be like a component of like oppositional defiance disorder because she tends to like, you know, stand up to her father, to Sebastian, anyone with authority. She tends to disagree with them and just do what she wants to anyway. So kind of like a disregard for authority.
Yeah, if we see this disregard for authority that's pervasive and that is clinically significant, oppositional defiant disorder should be on a differential. Again, the idea that there's something pathologically going on that would be beyond what we would expect with regard to the age appropriate norm, right? So it's in a differential. Full disclosure, since I'm not a child psychiatrist, I'm not going to pursue that. If we had a child adolescent psychiatrist here, maybe more conversation about that.
I was also wondering if it was like a normal reaction just because her dad seems very controlling and like authoritative towards her, like, or authoritarian, what the word is. Like, I don't know, just like when I watched it as like an adult versus like watching it as a kid, I just felt like, oh, if that was my kid, I definitely wouldn't deal with their issues in that way because I feel like he just pushed her away.
Connection lost. Oh, I think we're okay. Although so I apologize for those following at home, but hopefully we're reestablished. And again, I think that always has to be our starting point. Even when the patient's presentation is textbook, it's always good to have the clinician's perspective be, let's start out with the consideration that this is normal or culturally sanctioned behavior. And then perhaps even quickly, stepping forward to why it is not. Beyond the hoarse voice, which again may or may not be linked to this, uh, any other indication that this is maybe inappropriate or otherwise clinically significant behavior?
Could it be the level of extreme of her behavior? Including her falling on her couch and that was doing just to these this one day that she really
That's concerning. Yeah, I mean, I think especially if you asked King Triton, you asked her dad, that this would be worrisome. And if you offered open-ended question and you got no more information, is there a closed-ended question you would then follow up with regard to identifying that from a dad's perspective? I think there's a piece of info we might want with regard to her running away the way she does. Abuse, possibly. Even before that, though, I think there's something that's relatively obvious in this movie that the clinician should inquire about. always think substances. We'll get there as well. If the king tells us, I'm concerned about my daughter, I understand that her friends are oppositional and defiant towards their parents as well, but this is concerning, she just ran away. I think the next question I would have, again, would be open-ended, but if I didn't get an answer, or if I didn't get information that clarifies the situation, did this behavior start incident to the death of her mom? Because I think that's a pertinent negative in this film that the clinician simply can't overlook, and that's onset. And I don't know what the answer is, but I think it's right for the clinician to inquire.
Also, she puts herself at risk because, like, for her own safety, because she's making, like, the deal with the dangerous sea witch who at the beginning she acknowledges is, like, not a safe, like, she identifies them as a dangerous person, and yet, makes a deal knowing the risks anyway, which also just, like, contributes, like, it's not only impulsive behavior, but it's also, like, putting herself in harm's way.
Yeah. So impulsive behavior, risk-taking behavior might be part of normal adolescence. Maybe it's not. And in retrospect, maybe what was deemed to be consistent with normal adolescence, in retrospect, maybe it isn't. Again, is this Ray Kinsella all over again? Right? Running away from home with regard to defiance and a disagreement with their father. Very, very similar parallel here to Field of Dreams. What else? What are some things that happen to the main character that you wouldn't necessarily think of in the context of a mental disorder, but certainly in describing the film, you wouldn't miss?
I think, like, one interesting point to be made is that, like, she really wants to be human, so she kind of, like, is not content being a mermaid and kind of, like, experiencing, like, dysphoria, and, like, she wants to be among humans, so I think that's kind of, like, a big cause of stress for her even before she meets the prince. She, like, kind of obsesses over humans and their behavior and collects their items and kind of, like, really is just obsessed with people.
Anything about that?
It's almost like, I don't know, some parallels with, like, gender dysphoria, but, like, species dysphoria.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's where we would go when somebody is uncomfortable with regard to their, let's say, genomic makeup, right? Their genotype. Yeah. Now, I think on a more superficial and symbolic way, this is a self-image disturbance, and therefore may be consistent with what classification of mental disorder?
Like a body dysphoria.
Yeah, right? So number one would be body dysmorphic disorder. And quite frankly, if somebody presented to you on call and said, by the way, um, I either have fins or would like fins, body dysmorphic disorder would be consideration. Body dysmorphic disorder is part order must we consider as clinicians with regard to the body image disturbance or the self-image disturbance or the self-image disturbance in addition to body dysmorphic disorder.
Eating disorder.
Yeah, eating disorders, absolutely, right? And if we're going to keep consistent neurobiologically, hoarding disorder, body dysmorphic disorder, serotonergic. The subtype of eating disorder that we would be concerned about would be the binge eating and purging subtype, right, which has a serotonergic role. Individuals with eating disorder can respond to antidepressants, and the mechanism is usually present. You can actually improve that and therefore improve the overall sense of well-being for your patient. The other mechanism is that binge eating and purging behavior is largely serotonergic. So an SSRI is often helpful in improving the symptoms and reduces those specific behaviors. Doesn't help with regard to the body image disturbance. That's really psychotherapy. But in terms of binge eating and purging behavior, SSRI. So there's a couple of mechanisms that might be at play here, but both are mediated by CNS serotonin. It's also interesting that one of the more memorable things she does is play with or allude to the fourth.
And she doesn't use it for eating. She like uses it to like brush her hair.
Right. And is that a metaphor for the ritualistic ways individuals with this condition, these conditions, actually eat? They can have their own rituals when it comes to eating. They can eat in secret, and they can also apply specific rituals with regard to eating. What else here?
We look at substance use.
Go ahead. So substance use disorder here? What about it?
So, I guess with this thing about pollution, in general, there could have been some sort of pollution that releasing chemicals into the water nearby her home and starting to affect her.
Assuming she is a mermaid, right? You can worry about toxin exposure. Of course, if her living under the sea is a form of derealization, it's more consistent with a psychotic dissociative spectrum. Depends on your perspective. But so toxin exposure. If you're thinking that this might be substance induced, again, substances can be illicit toxin. If you're thinking about a substance induced disorder, perhaps even a substance induced psychotic disorder, is there anything else either in the script or even symbolic in this movie that would support the idea that substances are playing a central role?
Could it be the high risk, high reward factor? Because we discussed this earlier, but we alluded to the original tale where she had to, when she walks on land, she feels the pain as if walking on broken glass. I think something else, but I only have 2 brain cells working together. So it could be that the pain is the, I guess, withdrawal symptoms or the negative symptoms of drug use, and then the reward, like the high, is like seeing or being around friends.
Could be, yeah. So first, in terms of high risk reward, is just the impulsive behavior, which we mentioned might be part of a manic episode, consistent with or parallel to the story of Ray Kinsella. Again, only because we just discussed it this morning. But also could be the direct physiologic effect of a substance too. And a lot of substances can actually result in those types of impulsive behaviors where the individual is met with disinhibition. And then even in some cases, depending on the substance we're focusing on here, maybe even euphoria. Right. With regard to her, again, this is alluding to the book, the actual description of her walking, feeling as if she's walking on knives. Any particular type of pain that would hallmark the subjective sense that you're walking on knives? Yeah, it's neuropathic pain, right? There's several different classifications of pain. One is neuropathic pain. And that's what might be going on here, right? So we have an element of psychosis. We have an element of neuropathic pain. And, all of the above may be building a symptom set, a review of systems that might indicate a particular substance. There's also one other quality of a physiologic change that we already mentioned, which was what? Yeah. 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 I mean, hoarseness or loss of voice, psychosis, derealization, the belief that you're a fish, rule out delusion, and neuropathic pain, right? So in copying these symptoms down, if you were to put them in a search engine, what toxin might come up? The answer is that it's the very toxin that I think you'd be most concerned about if you took this story literally and believed they were fish. It's mercury. So, this might be a case study of psychosis. It may, in fact, be a case study of psychosis. But I'm not so sure if it's psychotic features in the context of mania, Ray Kinsella. It might be psychosis in the context of manic-like behavior that's induced by a substance, or a substance-induced bipolar disorder. So it's something to consider.
Something else that seemed like almost like a metaphor for addiction and substance use was I was thinking of Ursula almost like the drug, like she promises Ariel to have her dreams fulfilled. So whatever that might be, you might use the drug because social anxiety or helps you feel things more productive or whatever the case may be. Like something is you think it's going to fix something in your life, and then ultimately Ursula's just tricking the people who come to her. And then we see them as like those little brown, like squiggly, like abandoned souls, which kind of reminded me of like, I don't know, the way like you might expect a drug that might fool you into thinking that it's going to fix something in your life, but ultimately it's going to just have negative effects on you.
I think she's playing a central role here. However, I'm not even sure if she truly exists. And we could take that in one of a couple of contexts. One, in a literal sense, is Ursula a figment of Ariel's imagination, her delusional system? We've been down that road before. Is Ursula, again, a cartoon version of Terrence Mann? Or does she exist in Ariel's non-psychotic mind, right? What role does Ursula seem to fill for Disney, consistent with not almost every, several other Disney films? Disney has made this character role iconic. More specific than villain.
Enabler?
I think she's an enabler. I think it's the evil stepmother. Right? And again, we have to wonder, since she wants to get at Triton, what's there or what's been there? Is she your biological mother? Now, in a lot of Disney films, when biological mom dies, there's reason to believe that biological mom doesn't die. And that's supported by the very stories and books, the Brothers Grimm, for example, from which these tales are made, where the biological mother doesn't die and is often the perpetrator, characteristics of whom are just translated, displaced to the quote-unquote evil stepmother in the Disney fairy tale. So it goes from a tale of folklore to a fairy tale. And because of that, fairy tales focused on children. We drop one character, the biological mom, and we have the creation of another character, which is the fictional evil stepmother. The evil stepmother is an imaginary friend. It's normal if you're age appropriate. It's an imaginary friend. And what all imaginary friends do, but certainly the evil stepmother imaginary friend certainly does, was that they embody all the negative attributes of biological mom so that the child is able to keep biological mom perfect, idealize her. And when I call and she doesn't come, when I look for her and she's not there, when I need her, perhaps need her most, she's absent. My mom would never do that, and the child may find that incredibly threatening in accepting that. So imaginary friend, evil stepmom, get those characteristics. Wow, my imaginary friend has those, and my mom is kept perfect. Is that Ursula? And if it is, the question has to come up is, what were the imperfections of biological mom, of Ariel's mom, that were so threatening to Ariel to bring to conscious awareness that she had to splitting is the defense mechanism, and create the imaginary friend. Now, the imaginary friends are a product of the defense mechanism fantasy. But then in addition to that, the attribution of those negative impulses is due to splitting. And might that be, or might that explain the evolution or creation of Ursula?
Speaking of Ursula, like, could we like attribute
like they say that she has antisocial personality disorder because like she just has a blatant disregard. And also she's very like manipulative. Like it seems like she has more to gain from like she wants to use. She's basically using Ariel to get what she wants. So it's like selfishness, I guess, on her part. And it's not really about getting at Ariel, but it's about using her to get what she wants.
Yeah. Well, what is it that she ultimately wants?
Power. She
Where-
wants the trident so she can exert power over all situations.
Might that shed some light as to what the attributes of biological mom were that little Ariel simply could not allow to come to conscious awareness? What was it about her mom's need for power that resulted in the fantasy and the splitting, and therefore the creation of Ursula as an evil stepmom motif?
The untrustworthiness, the Ariel didn't trust her mom or her mom was raised.
Yep. I remember too. Okay.
Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say that, and we're not going to go there, but if we had time, I think another layer to this would be Oedipal, and that mom certainly represented something that Ariel felt was in her way of resolving the Oedipus complex. So we could even begin to pinpoint when in development this may have occurred. When in development Ursula became manifest as the imaginary friend.
Could it be that, going back to the mom's death, so could it be that Ursula is embodying Ariel's maybe resentment for her mother? Because her mother was apparently killed, so then maybe Ursula's drive for power could be that Ariel's way of saying, if my mom was stronger, she would still be here and not like abandoned me.
Yep.
Didn't she have like Ariel had sisters, right? So like maybe like the mother favored that. It's kind of a creepy little stepmother trope again, but like she never got the attention, and when she was out of the way, like the King Triton was partial towards her.
Could be. Again, what you would need to do here is write the essay, write the bio, write the past psychiatric history, write the developmental history that would explain all this, because there's a lot there. And I think there's enough information to build a narrative that really fits. I think not only would it fit in terms of being incredibly interesting, but it would also be evidence-based. If we're thinking that this is Oedipal, and this happens around 5 years of age or so, there's going to be egocentrism around that time, because that's normal for that 5-year-old, which means that upon their death, the individual can blame themselves. What did I do to cause mom's death? That's the way a 5-year-old would normally react. And if we're buying into the Oedipal complex, her wish would have been, that is her impulse, her id impulse would have been to get rid of mom so that she could have her dad all to herself. And if that actually came true, boy, would this little girl / fish feel guilty. And that brings us right back around to the role that the evil stepmother plays. Her name here is Ursula, at least the motif of which, and she's looking for power by using Ariel to get to that trident, and that's incredibly phallic. Right? Brings us right back to the Oedipal or the Freudian psychosexual stage, called the phallic stage, where the Oedipal complex is resolved, or not. All right, it's 1 o'clock. We're going to end here on that incredibly high, if not Freudian note. And for those following at home from the internship, we'll be back after a 10-minute break for our case conference and our presentation.